Hello and welcome. Today we are going to talk about quantitative research, and it's a brief overview about the quantitative research method. Quantitative research method is very much important and it's very authentic. It's considered to be a more scientific and a more authentic method these days, and it has its own value. As when we say about something quantitative, it means that we are talking about the numerical figures, we are talking about the statistical approaches, and we are talking about the mathematical approaches, mathematical techniques that are being employed to conclude the results. First of all, I would like to tell you about the quantitative research, what it actually is. Quantitative research is defined as a systematic investigation of phenomena by gathering quantifiable data and performing statistical and mathematical or any kind of computational techniques. It collects the data in the form of numerical figures, and it then further analyzes the data using the statistical methods and the mathematical approaches, and it then concludes the results in the form of values which are more generalizable. So this method is also used to check the relationship between many variables, and it generate results which can be generalized to a larger or a wider population. First of all, I would like to give you about a brief historical overview of the quantitative method. So, this method had been evolving in Western thinking since about the mid 16th century. Copernicus, Bacon, Galilei, Kepler, Newton, Descartes, and there are many other scientists and mathematicians who had been using this kind of research method since a long time, and they considered this method to be a more valuable method and a more scientific method. The reason for it being a more scientific method is that uh, it concludes the results in the form of figures. We have values which we can generalize in a more reliable manner. So the results that are gathered to the quantitative method are more reliable, and the outcome that is produced is more generalizable to a greater population. So there are some key stages in the research process. First of all, observing a phenomena or identifying a problem. Observing means to observe a phenomena, and while observing, we come up with a problem. We identify a problem, that there is a problem, and then we generate an initial hypothesis. And the second point, we generate an initial hypothesis about a certain problem, that this could be due to this reason and this could be solved by this kind of technique. So generating an initial hypothesis is also very much important, and then testing the hypothesis by collecting and analyzing empirical data using standardized procedures. We use standardized procedures, mathematical and statistical softwares to analyze the data and collect the empirical evidence to our hypothesis. Main characteristics of quantitative research: using numbers, a prior categorization, variable rather than cases, statistics and the language of statistics, standardized procedures to assess objective reality, quest for generalizability and universal laws. So these are the main characteristics. Using numbers instead of the other features, they use numbers to collect the data, to analyze the data, and to derive the results. Variables rather than cases. It uses variables rather than the cases. There are many variables like dependent variables, independent variables, and there are certain variables which not directly but are indirectly influenced by the independent variables. Statistics and the language of statistics, it uses the statistical softwares, and the language of statistics means that the mean, mode, average, and frequency is concluded, and there are many other features of statistics which are used, and the language of statistics is used to analyze the data, to talk about the results that are gathered through the quantitative research. Standardized procedures to assess the objective reality. Why is the point very objective? The reality is objective. It means that the subjectivity is not considered in quantitative research. Generally, the subjectivity has more to do in the qualitative research instead of the quantitative research. And standardized procedures are used to assess objective reality. It means that the data is collected in the form of facts and figures, and thus the reality is considered to be more objective because it has nothing to do with the subjectivity of the respondent, it has nothing to do with the subjectivity of the researcher. It actually brings forth the objective reality of the issue. Quest for generalizability and universal laws. So there are many other characteristics, like the it uses the sample size, which is very large. This research kind is more structured as compared to the qualitative research methods, and it is generated is very reliable. The reason for it being very reliable is that we gather the results in the form of a proper empirical evidence, in the form of numericals, in the form of numbers. We can generalize our findings to a larger population, and these outcomes are not only reliable but they are reusable. So this data, the outcomes are reusable. It contains close-ended questions, it contains open-ended questions, and close-ended questions are generally less time consuming. So because the respondent needs to answer in a yes or no, or whether he has to choose among many options, or he has to provide an answer in a yes and no format, and so no more time is required. So the numerical outcome, we gather the outcome in the form of numerical figures, which is more reliable and more reusable and more generalizable. So it can be generalized to a greater population, and the universal laws can be made based upon the research. There are many strengths of the quantitative research, but first of all, I would like to tell you that there are many types of quantitative research, like experimental research, descriptive research, correlational research, quasi experimental research. There are different kinds of research, but we're not going to discuss the different types of quantitative research here. We will discuss in another video. And there is an example for quantitative research. Quantitative research is, for example, we have height. There are certain characteristics of our body, our figure, which we can measure only through the figures. Like, we can provide the figures for those kind of measurements. For example, if somebody says that what is your height, of course we will answer that person in the form of 5 feet and 4 inches, or 5 feet and 9 inches. Kind of, we will give them a certain value. And for example, if that person asks us about our weight, so we will give them we are 69 kgs, or we are around 80 kgs or 85 kgs. So there is a proper numerical value for that characteristics of our. Or if somebody asks us what is your shoe size, so of course we will say that it's 9, or it's 8, or it's 38, or it's 40, whatever it is. So there is a proper value for every characteristic. So this kind of measurement is called as quantitative measurement. For example, if somebody asks us what is your eye color, so we'll never say that our eye color is brown 3.5 or brown 3.9. Of course we will say that our eye color is brown, or our eye color is blue, light blue, dark blue, light brown, dark brown. But we'll never say that brown 3 or brown 2 or brown O or something like that, because there is no numerical measurement to that point, to that quality. So this is a quality. What is your hair color? It is a quality. It's either brown or black or skin or white, whatever it is, but it never gives you a certain value, an appropriate confirmed value about it being brown or about it being black or of any other color. So these are the qualities of yours. You have 10 fingers, this is your quantitative value. You have light skin color, you have brown color skin color, you have eye color which is blue, or you have other characteristics which cannot be measured quantitatively. All those characteristics are qualitative, and the things or the qualities which can be measured in a quantitative manner, we will consider them to be, we will bring them under the quantitative research, like the height, the weight, the shoe size, the waist size. So these are all the quantitative qualities, okay, which can be measured in a quantitative manner, which can be quantitatively analyzed, which provides a quantifiable data. All right, so here I was discussing about the examples, the characteristics, the types of quantitative research, and now I'll tell you about the strength of quantitative research. Okay, so quantitative inquiry is a systematic, rigorous, focused, and tightly controlled, involving precise measurement and focusing reliable and replicable data that is generalizable to other contexts. As we have discussed, that this kind of data is more generalizable, and it is more focused and more reliable. The outcomes are more reliable. The reason for it being more reliable is that it provides the evidence in the form of numerical figures, which are more generalizable, which are numerical, which are reusable outcomes. So the second point is that research process is relatively quick and offers good value for money, particularly because the data analysis can be done using statistical computer software. Data can be analyzed using statistical software, so the researcher does not need to put forth certain other theories, or it's basically more quicker, because using the statistical formulas, using the statistical softwares, we can analyze the data. Is very, so this is very effective, very quick, and offers a good value for money. Simply email the questionnaires, or we will distribute questionnaires in the form of hard copies to the respondents, and they will solve it. The researcher not always needs to go to the respondent personally, to meet the respondent personally, to take interviews from the respondent. So this is very quick. The downside of quantitative method is that they are less subjective in nature. For example, if we talk about qualitative methods, they are more subjective. Research, the researcher provides the respondent with full liberty to provides the answer the whatever way he wants to provide. And so we know that questions are mostly in the questionnaires, questions are mostly in the form of open-ended questions or close-ended questions. But in quantitative research, we need to provide the data, we need to produce the figures. So what we do is that we either collect the answer in the form of yes or no, or we either the researcher undergoes a survey through which he collects the data, what the respondents think about certain issue, and then he analyzes and he categorizes the data, and then he further concludes the results. So less subjectivity is involved actually, and this method is generally not considered to be very much sensitive, because it does not uncover the reasons for particular observations or dynamics underlying the examined situation or phenomena. So we can say that somewhat, to some extent, the quantitative research actually considers the superficial reality of things, and it does not goes deep down into the reasoning perspective. It does not see things from the reasoning perspective. It just considers things from, or issues from, the very superficial surface. For example, this is as it is. It does not go deep down to answer the questions and to find out the reasons for certain issues. So it is not that much sensitive as qualitative research is. Three independent variables influence a single dependent variables mediated by two intervening variables. So this picture is showing you that there are independent variables which does not, the value of which does not depend upon any other variable, and there are dependent variable where the value of which depends upon directly or indirectly depends upon the independent variable. So between these dependent and independent variables there are intervening variables which are directly or indirectly influenced by the independent variables, and the dependent variables are completely dependent upon the values of the independent variables. So here in quantitative research we see things from the in the form of variables like dependent variable or independent variables. There are certain variables, so this kind of dependency and independency relationship is built between variables in the quantitative research. So this is what is it. Today we studied about the quantitative research and we'll be discussing the difference between the qualitative and quantitative research and many other things, and the tools of quantitative research. First of all, we will talk about that in the next video, so we will discuss them in another video. For more informative videos, please subscribe the channel. And take care.